Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment prohibits any of the funding from being used to carry out environmental justice activities. Let me explain this to you. Environmental justice is nothing more than the synthesis of divisive racial ideology and radical environmentalism in the same package. This entire ideology is based on the notion that federal environmental funding should be allocated based on immutable characteristics. Biden's Justice 40 initiative directs 40% of federal clean energy and energy efficiency spending based on ethnicity, migrant status, and income status. How is that fair in America? I don't hear anything about the fact that poor communities are hurt hardest by this administration's inflationary energy policy. Just last year, the Census Bureau found that 36% of consumers say it has been somewhat to very difficult for them to pay their usual bills in the last 7 days. That's a 25% increase from the prior year. And I hear it in my own district. Environmental justice is just another way for this administration to funnel dollars, your tax dollars, to radical left-wing groups, including anti-Israel groups. And I think that's important to note today. In December of 2023, the Biden administration announced it would award $600 million in environmental justice funding. $50 million went to the Climate Justice Alliance, which organized anti-Israel protest in the Capitol Rotunda last year. What does any of that have to do with the environment? Climate Justice Alliance website has a Free Palestine webpage that states the path to climate justice travels through a free Palestine. I'm sorry, I don't see the nexus. Will my Democrat colleagues vote to send money to these groups, Iran's useful idiots, by opposing this amendment on the day that the Prime Minister of Israel came and addressed a joint session? I sure hope not, and I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Maine rise?
I seek time in opposition to this amendment.
The chair is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In recent years, Democrats have made historic investments in environmental justice, and the EPA has already put those dollars to good use. It's unfortunate that my colleagues across the aisle continue to attack good government programs. Environmental justice ensures that all Americans receive the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards, which is particularly important in rural communities, many of which are in the very districts of my colleagues across the aisle and myself. Rural communities and low-income communities have long been targeted by corporations, regulatory agencies, and local planning and zoning boards when siting polluting facilities. This includes things like landfills, waste transfer stations, incinerators, garbage dumps, diesel bus and truck garages, auto body shops, smokestack industry, industrial hog and chicken processors, oil refineries, chemical manufacturers, and radioactive waste storage areas. And because of this, these communities typically have lower property values, higher health disparities, and shorter lifespans. So why would my colleagues try to defund any effort to improve the lives of people in rural and low-income communities? It's not yet another attempt to implement an extreme agenda, to attack minority groups at all costs, and to return the United States to a time where environmental discrimination was the norm. I urge my colleagues to support our rural and our low-income communities by rejecting this amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know about all Americans. As a matter of fact, many of the communities that I represent are lower income. They're struggling to pay their electricity bills, and I doubt that they've gotten $50 million or part of the Climate Justice Alliance. Most of my constituents don't have time to run around protesting with Free Palestine signs the day that the Prime Minister of Israel is addressing Congress. But I will tell you this, justice should not be based on ethnicity, migrant status, or income status. Justice should be blind in America. Unfortunately, we've gotten away from that, and this is funding it. So I suggest that we all vote in favor of this and have justice be blind and have all Americans and all citizens treated equally. I yield the balance.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Maine is recognized.
I yield back.
Gentlelady